Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and tonight we are very excited to be speaking with Ahmad Vital. In 2011, Ahmad published Awaken the Baller Within, which was quickly labeled as the athlete's life manual by some pundits in sports media. This book was taught in more than a dozen colleges and close to 50 athletic departments and sports camps. As a mental performance coach, Ahmad helped secure more than $6 million in scholarship monies and worked with athletes at Division I level and the NFL. Not long after a successful career as a college football recruiting analyst with Scout.com, a Fox Sport affiliate, Ahmad founded That Guy Media Group and expanded his platform to small business and nonprofit organizations, where he focused on dream building, goal setting, and a relentless pursuit of the aforementioned. By teaching his audiences to recognize their strengths and capitalize on the power that everyone harnesses within, individuals can realize previously unimagined levels of personal happiness and success. Ahmad, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, of course. And I only got through a very short amount of the bio because there are so many things that you've done, so many accomplishments. But just what we've covered, if you run into somebody in the street, how do you introduce yourself? So, how do you introduce yourself, or what do you tell them that you're doing now?
And first and foremost, as always, thank you for having me on. It's really, first and foremost, I'm a writer. I've been a writer since the age of like 10, 11 years old. So most times I say author, speaker, and mental performance coach because I do work with mentoring a lot of young men and some athletes at the current time to be able to help them really sift through life. We do have a major crisis going on with our teens and our young adults. There's a lot of lack of purpose, a lot of lack of what my next step is going to be. And I just want to be there to just help them sift through some of that pile they have in their living room and just see if we can figure some things out and get them on a path to being earning, useful people in society.
I'm glad you said that because mental health, awareness of uh, having the right mindset, staying positive is something that I think in the last few years specifically, we've seen a proliferation of not only that it is much more common than we thought of, but it's okay to talk about and it's okay to work on in all different spheres of our lives. As a former athlete and working with athletes, confidence is a big piece of helping athletes get to where they are and ultimately succeed to get to that next level. How open are you finding the athletes, the young men that you're working with, to talk about these things, to admit that yeah, I could probably focus on this a little bit better, or what does that initial conversation look like when you meet with them?
With the fact that I am a jock, former jock, the conversations usually go really well, speaking their language. And really, I come at an approach that's not really, let's hug this out and let's, unpack your feelings. It's just like, what's going on? Let's get right to it. Let's get surgical with it. Kind of that whole rip the band-aid off. I was raised by very stoic, pragmatic men, no excuse type of guys. And I've had a lot of coaches who poured into me over the years, and none of them, there was no silver spoon. There was no mulligans. It was like get after it or go run, or there was always a major trade off, or I don't want to say a punishment, but there was serious discipline in my life, my whole life. So I went with that method a lot more. I can't say it works with everybody, but I'd say 80% of them it works with. And the fact of just getting right to the heart of the matter, like where are we and where are we trying to go? Right. Let's just unpack the mess. Like just, don't hold back, don't hold your tongue. Let's find out what's going on because I want to get you from point A to point B so that we can start working on other letters in the future. But right now we need to know where we are and we need to know the first step. We don't need the whole, as MLK was saying, we don't need the whole staircase. We just need the first step, and so, we just kind of focus on that first and foremost.
Well, that makes a ton of sense as far as where to start, and then speaking their language because you walked in their shoes. I'm sure that certainly helps get that ball rolling, especially coming from the background that you had as an athlete. But you mentioned a writer is how you identify now. Um, Seeing that you communicate directly, verbally, for the most part, how are you communicating your message in written word versus face to face? How do you differentiate, and what kind of common themes do you use in both mediums?
Well, for me, most everything starts with a pen and pad. As you can see, I'm old school. I still have the old school yellow
Nice.
pads. There's about 20 of those in here, along with about 100 composition books. Um, and so everything starts off with writing. I feel like the greatest gift I was ever given is the power of my pen. And so whether I'm going to set up a meeting, whether I'm going into a keynote, whether I'm going into a seminar, whether I'm going to have a one-on-one coaching session, everything starts off with a pen. And even while I'm doing these things, a pen is in my hand. So my chosen form of media, definitely to unpack my thoughts, comes with pen and pad. When I get involved face to face with somebody, obviously I have emails and things of that nature. But when we're sitting down, I'm talking through these different things based on either some of the questions that they have shared with me before we got there, or when I'm there on the spot, I'm writing down the notes of what they're talking about so I can see what direction we're going to go. Of course, I have an outline and a plan going right there, but these guys get on the scene, and next thing you know, it's something that was not mentioned in our pre-event that we were supposed to discuss. And so I like to deal with people where they are. As much as you like to plan, I mean, you're a businessman, you know how this goes. You put a plan on paper, and I mean, how much of it actually executes? Like 25, 30% sometimes, and you have to pivot, and you have to adjust in the moment. And when you're coaching young adults and coaching teenagers, my goodness, you need to be prepared and ready for that. So my pen is the foundation, but it does set the backdrop for my words to be able to deal with on the spot.
Very nice. I love the old school pen and pad. Nothing wrong with that. I'm writing my notes feverishly here as we speak, so I love it, and I do the same. You've also spoken to some large crowds all over the world. Do you remember what it was like, either your first or one of your first times you were walking up on stage? How it compared to stepping on the field, or what was going through your head? Was it helpful to have your prior experience, or was it completely different? It was like, I thought I was ready, but not exactly what I was expecting.
Time in ball and time on the field does prepare you. And like I share with a lot of my parents, sports is a metaphor for life. There's so many lessons that can be taught and learned from competitive sports. And I'm not talking about the sports where everyone gets pizza and ice cream at the end. I'm talking about sports where there's actually, there's a scoreboard and there's a clear winner and a clear loser, because I think that the idea of both of them are very important. So it has prepared me. I was a three-sport athlete in high school. I played college football as well. All those things prepared me for when I was able to take a stage. And obviously that's a whole different thing to not only take the stage, and it's like you have to be confident in what you know. And there's been growing pains in doing that. But I did, I've had good mentors, I've had good speaking coaches around me to be able to kind of get me in the game of the speaker side of things. Because everyone always says like, oh, I want to be an author, I want to be a speaker. And it's just like, yeah, it's not just you just wake up and just do this. Like there's an art form to it and different things. And I'm still learning even today. But I will say that a lot of the stuff I did down here, because speaking in some locker rooms is not the same thing as speaking, to a group of entrepreneurs in Africa. That's a whole different ball game. However, there is some correlation because the core of who you are is going to show up. So, I just got through speaking to a tech company out in Austin, and I was like, you know what? We're treating this like a chalk talk. Let's roll our sleeves up. We're talking about grit. We're talking about resiliency. Let's just get after it. And so the core of me comes out, and people like the authenticity that I bring to it. So I think that whether I'm speaking to a group of athletes, entrepreneurs, tech geniuses, or realtors, people at a community center, the homeless, at Salvation Army, the true you is going to come out. And I think that when you step into who you are and where your heart is, and wanting to help and serve people, I think people will accept that. And so the preparation is that I learned the skills and talents I need to be able to be in front of people and share with them. But I also go back to the idea of like, hey man, I'm the 11-year-old lining up on the track. I'm the 14-year-old lining up as a cornerback, going against a top 10 receiver. And it's like my job is to make sure the ball doesn't get to his hands, And so there's times of life that prepare you for that. But I will say, doing the international thing did shock me a little bit from the first time, because you're having people who are, different cultures. And so whereas you can still be you, there is still some things that some nuances and some things you need to know when you're going in front of people. There's 35 countries represented in the room. So you just can't, use all of the same words you use in, New Caney, Texas.
It really clicked for me when you mentioned being authentic, and I wrote down prepared as well, because those two things you really need to get right and to be schooled in, whether you're on the field, on the track, or on a stage, because you can't hide if you're not prepared. And if you're kind of making up a persona, you're not yourself, the audience or the crowd, they're going to know. And, you're going to, especially as a cornerback, they're going to see the back of your jersey as you're running after the receiver down the sideline because you weren't prepared or you're not as good as you should be to be on that field. And same with the speaker. If you're going in front of that group and it's like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or he doesn't have this experience. But when you're authentic, when you're prepared, it shows in both those settings. So really love kind of that way that you drew that together. But you also mentioned that people ask about, I want to be a writer or speaker, and they might not realize all the work that goes into that. Do you have a story that you tell either people you're speaking to or people that you're working with, as far as what it was like, or kind of your welcome to moment, and how you have grown doing writing and speaking?
Obviously writing came to me pretty naturally. I literally wrote my first unpublished book somewhere between 10, 11, and 12 years old. So that sort of comes naturally to me, though. Obviously you can still learn to write, and Lord knows I have some great editors. I have one in particular who absolutely decimates my work, and I thank her for it greatly, because she will rip it to shreds, but she understands what it takes to become a bestseller. And so know what you know what you're good at, and keep a group of people around you who can fill in the gaps, which most of us have a lot of gaps to fill. But when people want to jump into the speaker game, I always tell them, I'm like, look, you don't just jump in front of a group of people and next thing you know, someone's going to cut you a check for 10 grand. That's just not how this works. You have to pay your dues just like with anything else. I mean, when I tell people some of the routes I've taken to get to where I am, I think the year was 2017. And I had already been a speaker for some time before then, but I went through a pretty nasty divorce. And so I was trying to sort of regain a new purpose in my life, because a lot of things had been taken from me during that time. And mentally, I was a mess. And I remember just going into different organizations and was just like, I'll tithe my entire talk to you. All I want to do is be able to video it, and you give me a testimonial, or maybe a referral. And I remember that was one of the best years. The year I went in and said, I'm going to do all these talks, quote unquote, for free, is where I grossed some of the most amount of money that year. And the fact that I was able to stay afloat when I lost so much financially and mentally during that time. So what I would share with somebody is, I always look to give, to serve, to provide first. Everybody's always trying to figure out, like, well, how much do you make? How much do you make? That's not the right question, right? For one, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to start off in a small group. Find a group at the church, find a group at the community center, 10 or less people. It doesn't matter. You need some feedback, because you may need to tighten some things up. And so that's what I tell people. Find a group who knows you, but maybe it's not like, oh, everything you do is great. But you need someone who can hold you accountable, who can, say, hey, that second point, I didn't quite understand that. So you can get some feedback, because no one's going to cut the check until you have some receipts proving you can do this. And so that would be one thing that I would tell them, to utilize the group you have, test drive your material, and know what you know and lean in on it.
That feedback is so valuable, because especially if it's a group where they know you and they're going to just tell you the good things, you're just going to avoid improving. First of all, you won't even know the things that you're not good at, and then you're going to avoid improving on them, identifying what they are and removing them if possible. So it's very, very helpful to hear that from a supportive audience, but one that, they'll tell you where you need to grow, learn, or focus time. So that's good advice. And one thing that I always am never amazed at, but it just continue to hear. I speak to some amazing folks on the show, and they've always got the never stop learning attitude. They may be like yourself, a coach, somebody who's leading young people, but they have coaches, they have mentors, they have people that are helping them, and that's a cycle that goes on forever. That it's I can always get better, I can always do something a different way, a smarter way, just continually improving in what they do. And I just love that attitude, and it comes across as you talk. So I applaud you for that, and I can tell that that's front and center when you are talking with any of the groups that you're speaking with. Before we hit record, you had mentioned that your latest book came out in January. What can you tell us about that?
So now what? 5 Steps to Get Up and Create the Most of Life was written in the summer of 2020. Not sure if anybody around or yourself know there was a few things going on during that time. Just a few. I remember there was so much noise during that time. If you remember, there was noise coming from everywhere. It was coming spiritually, politically, societally, culturally, racially. I mean, it was just everything was just one big bullhorn about everything. And I remember driving down the tollway on my way somewhere while I was out here in Houston, and I was just like, man, I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of I'm owed something, I deserve, you owe, just a lot of pointing fingers, a lot of blame, a lot of, I got this mess in my living room and it's your fault. Like, I just got sick of all those conversations. And I remember sitting down and I was just like, if I had one of these people who were just complaining in front of me, what would I share with them to get them out of that mindset into something greater? And so now what was created out of that time? And I focused on 5 steps to be able to take someone from that rock bottom place, that I can't do anything place. Use a choice word here, my life sucks place. I use that very strongly from the standpoint that, like, when people are having a pity party, they're all they're talking about is all the bad that's in their life. And they haven't been able to talk to someone who can say, there's some good there. It may not be a lot. I'm not going to tell you that, hey, it's like, let's turn up and have fun. But there is some good. And let's just start with the fact that you and I are sitting here talking and we're breathing. So we have life. So at least we have the basic core things going. And so with now what, we like to focus on first with reflection. You can't know where you're going until you know where you are. So it's like, you're sitting around and you're looking around at your surroundings and it's just like, okay, there's a pile of dirty clothes over there. There's a fire going on in the kitchen. There's 3 kids screaming in the living room. And I don't know what's in that closet over there, but it's a mess and I don't want to open it up because I want to avoid it. Well, think about that from a life standpoint, right? You maybe have a bad history, maybe have some legal issues over here, got a couple of divorces, you started your family too early and you just couldn't afford it. And so now you're just in a downtrodden place and, and your family's just maybe abandoning you, like you have no one around you. And so reflection allows you to look at all the parts of your life and really go through an exercise I call what's good here, and try to see where there are some wins in your life currently. Now, you may have to dig deep, but that's why the process is what it is. You take that pad we pulled out earlier and you say, why is my life so terrible? And you get to unload all of it. When they say, the ladies have the, go get the cheap wine and hang out with their homegirls and they're just in there just letting it all out. And anybody who's got a, wife, lady friend, or someone in their life, you've been told about those parties, right? And the guys, we sit around playing pool or over some cards, over dominoes, watching a game, and it's just like, man, let me tell you. And then they're unloading all the things of life that just aren't working for them. And so I like them to write down all of that. And I mean everything, like everywhere where it's just the worst. And I want them to sit away from that list for at least 4 hours, really up to a day. Go on about your life. Come back, sit still, pray over it, sit still, be quiet, and just clear your mind. And then go back and look at that and go on the other side of the page and say, okay, why was this that I say is so bad? Why was that actually a blessing for me? Why was that actually good? And what people will find out is there's a perspective. Okay, let's just say, you had a bad divorce and it's just like, man, like that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Well, what good came from it? Maybe you ended up relocating to a place where you were able to get a new lot on life. You got a new job and maybe you met someone new. So there was something new from there. I got in some legal issues. Well, maybe it force me to be a little bit more mature and not do certain things or whatever. And then what ends up happening is you look down that list and say, why is this person even on here? I haven't seen them in 10 years. Why are they still having mental real estate in my mind? So now you can just bless that person, forgive them, and cross them out because they don't belong. Like you've been holding on to something from them that you don't even need anymore. And so we go through that whole process for reflection, and you come out of reflection, you unpack all your junk, then you're going to decide. Like step 2 is to decide, what do you want? Okay, life's not so awesome. If you could Thanos snap your way into something, what would you want? And you decide what that is. You put it down, new career, start a family, write a book, launch a podcast, start a business, whatever you want. Okay, now we decided what we want. So then you decide. Then you go into step 3, which is the planning stage. I want to do this. How do I get there? We work in reverse. Okay, do I need some financing? Do I need some training? Of this industry, who's the best in that industry? Maybe I should give them a call. All of these little things are going on in the planning process. Your business plan, your marketing plan, the mind maps, the dry erase board where you're putting the little dots together and saying, okay, I need this. That way you get yourself in a position where every day you can make progress towards a larger goal. And that's where we go with that. And of course, step 4 is to act. You make as many plans as you can. Now it's time to just get into action, and no, you will never be, for those who are listening, no, you will never fully be ready. Just go for it. You're going to run into a roadblock. You're going to sprain your ankle. A bear might slap you across the face one of those times. Something is going to happen. You may have a blown out tire along the way. The bottom line is that you'll never understand where you need to go until you go out there and test drive it. Anybody out there who's ever started a business can tell you everything they wrote in that initial business plan did not go as they initially put on there. Everything cost more than you thought. You didn't know the water heater was going to break. You didn't know that there was a leak in the back room. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And so you just go into action with knowing what the end goal in mind is. And you go through all of those things. But along the way, you're going through these actions and you're like, man, I'm running into a lot of roadblocks. So that's when you take into the final chapter of seek. And that is to seek counsel. I'm very big on community. Man is not meant to be lived alone. No one is meant to do life alone. And that goes from so many different levels, whether you're talking about family, you're talking about community, you're talking about church, you're talking about friendships, you're talking about community centers, you're talking about civic clubs, activities. The bottom line is that you need people around you. And so in recent weeks, recent months, I've been suggesting that a minimum of 3 people you need in your life at all times, all the time, whether you're man, woman, child, once you hit 13, 14, you need mentors in your life, right? And that's one of the people I say, you need an accountability ally, a mentor, someone who loves you, but not infatuated with you, someone who will look at your goal sheet and say, okay, all right, Mike, so where are we on this goal? Have we achieved that? Someone who will hold you accountable, someone who loves you, but doesn't say, it's not a yes person, which, by the way, to your audience, please get the yes people out of your life. Like immediately, like get all the yes people out of your life. The people who everything you do is awesome. Everything you do is a win. Everything is a win. Everything is cool. Nothing you ever do go get them out of there. The yes people will literally stunt your growth. So you need somebody who's an accountability ally and a mentor. Also, you need someone, whatever you chose as your chosen profession, you need sort of like the master so that you could be an apprentice to them. Let's just say you want to be an author. Well, who's the best-selling author? Who you have access to? Connect with them. Connect with a good editor. Things of that nature. Who's in your industry, who's mastered this industry and is awesome at it. And you want to work under them and, have them coach you. So then you have your mentor, you have your coach. And then I always say you need the patriarch, the old school, the papa, the grandfather, the godfather, whoever, the guy who's seen more stuff in a month and in so many years than you've seen in your whole life. Someone who just has that good old school wisdom. And then I say another person you want to have in your life is possibly whether it's a minister, a pastor, or someone along those lines, someone who can morally hold you accountable in addition to your mentor, right? Someone who just has a moral compass. Like what you're doing is not illegal, but it's not cool to do. It's not you don't want to go that route. Someone who morally is going to hold you in check. You want that person, just someone you can bounce some ideas off. Like, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think about it? It's like, maybe you shouldn't do that because this will cause this. Like someone who can just kind of hold you accountable and maybe not seeing things from the same perspective. Not so much that it's bad, but it's like, it's not ideal to do that. And so you want those type of people surrounded around you. That's where seeking counsel comes in. So that's the 5 steps of now what, 5 steps to get up and create the most of life, which no matter where you are on the spectrum of crazy, those 5 steps should be able to get you from point A to point B to get you in a better place in life.
Thank you for walking us through those. I took down a few things I just wanted to quickly follow up on, make sure that we talk about the action piece. You never will be fully ready. You mentioned having a plan, being prepared, and sometimes that's 25%. We will never have the blueprint for exactly what's going to happen. So take the action, get the mistakes out of the way, learn from them, move forward. And that's why it's important to have those the mentors and the accountability partners, because they will hold you to what you said you were going to do. Why didn't you do it? Well, you did it and it didn't work out. What did you learn from it? And that goes back to the initial point that you made there, that people always like to talk about the glass half full versus half empty, and that sounds great, but how do you do it? And your step-by-step description there of writing down what's going on, taking the time to step away, and then looking back and say, well, what did you learn from this? What can be taken to move forward as a positive, something that we can actually learn from, is really helpful and powerful, because you might think that you are at a tough spot, but there's probably somebody who's got something more difficult than you, and you can learn a ton from what you wrote down on your sheet just an hour ago, 4 hours ago. And it's like, hey, this isn't so bad. And actually, I'm in a pretty good spot. So thank you for walking us through that. It's fantastic. We are coming up on time somehow already, but I did want to hit on, you mentioned community and the part of the bio that I didn't get to. And some of the work you do is with nonprofits, community service within your community. Has this been something that has always been front and center in your life? How did you get started giving to others and kind of giving back and helping out with those around you?
That goes back to probably 2010, 2000, somewhere between 2008 and 2010, when I brought my mentor on. He taught me the importance of service and gratitude, and I've never forgotten it. And I realized it coincided with what my father was teaching me early on. I just was not willing to hear it then. But when a mentor came along, I'm a little older, have a couple more bruises on me. I'm just like, yeah, Dad did tell me that. Yep, I probably should go ahead and do that. And so I really, I feel like my service, my ministry, all of that stuff is part of the larger of who I am. It's me giving back. It's me showing gratitude. To put back in those places. I mean, I don't even log the hours anymore that I give back, because I don't really care that much in that regard. Obviously, I work with teens in the ministry at my church. I speak at nonprofits when I go get a paid gig. I'm, looking for community service to do along the way. We have a big serve day over at our church where we do between 21 and 28 different service projects in an entire Saturday. We're all over the place. And so I love the idea of letting God know how grateful I am for what you're doing for me, and letting me pour back into others. Because as much as we want to just ask for more, what is the more you're doing and getting? Are you doing anything to make someone else's life better? And if you can't look at anything in your life where that's not going on, I suggest that you make a pivot, like, immediately. I remember a minister friend of mine from back in the day. He told me what he would advise people when they lost their job. So I mean, thinking like, you're losing your income, lost your job. And you know what he used to tell people? First thing to do is go volunteer somewhere. Not get on LinkedIn, not get on Indeed, not go look for a job, not tighten up your resume. Go volunteer somewhere first. And I was like, and at first I didn't get that. I was just like, now I absolutely do. When you put yourself in a position where, you're giving of yourself. I mean, and there's so many principles that go to that. You give from where you are, not you give when you get more. You give from where you are, and that is where you are blessed the most. And so I've just taken that and just really ran with it, making myself available, especially to the young people, building the bridge for them. And so a lot of my week goes to service, and it's only increased since I started doing it. So it is the foundation of not only my business but more so of my life. I wish I could. There's no separation between it now. Like, it's not my service side, my business side. No, it's all part of a larger picture, and it's part of the business. It's part of my life, and it's part of just who I've become.
And that goes back to, being your authentic self, and living the life that is most true to you. And it makes sense that those lines are blurred. And even selfishly, there are a few things that you can do uh, besides volunteering and feel as good as you do when you help somebody else out without expecting anything in return. And to even go back to that exercise, if you're feeling down, you might be in a service project and realize, I thought I had it bad, but uh, looking at how this group, this community has lived through the things they've gone through, my problems don't seem as big anymore. So there are so many good things that can happen from just helping others, from just brightening somebody else's day to, as you said, I've lost my job. Instead of the first thing I'm doing to go brush up my resume, I'm going to go help somebody else out. I'll feel better. I'll get a better perspective, and I'll be in a better mindset to kind of move forward. So I love that answer for sure. Um, what's next for you, Ahmad?
Right now, we got some projects over at the church. I know we have our youth conference coming up. We have a mission trip in Missouri. I got some speaking engagements in New York. I'll be out, like I said, I'll be out in Missouri. I got some things going on in Austin, Texas. Um, Continuing to promote the book and different things of that nature. Boys and Girls Club summer program is coming up here pretty soon, so I'll be back with my little ones. My young adults is my target, but with the Boys and Girls Club, I work with K through 5. I know, bless me in that mission, but it does teach me a lot to work with them. So just more service projects. Gonna be a very busy back half of this spring and going into the summer. But the main thing is that we're just looking to empower as many as possible. Touch as many in so many different ways, and obviously in so many different age ranges, all the way from 5 up to probably 80 at this point in time. But we want to make sure and just make the world a little bit better than when you first got here. And that's sort of our mission in all of our different, whether it's through my writing, whether it's through my speaking, through my coaching, through working with my athletes, whether it's, just my evangelism with the church, being a prayer partner, all of those things. I just want to, you know, bring some light. And of course, I got the fitness side of things as well. So yeah, there's just so many different irons in the fire right now. But all of it's a ministry. All of it's to lead others to a better way of life, and just to, just have them have a more empowered stance in everything they do.
Very nice. Very nice. So we will post all of your links for your books, for your socials in our show notes. But if our listeners want to connect with you, or learn more about where you're going to be or what you're up to the next few months, where can they do that?
AhmardVital.com. That's AhmardVital.com. All of that's the hub for everything. There's videos there, is booking information there. I think there's merchandise there, contact information, info at AhmardVital.com if they want to reach out to me from that standpoint. If they want to get a free digital copy of the book, there's booknowwhat.com. That's booknowwhat.com. They can reach out there and get a free copy of the newest book that just came out. Also, same social media, IG and on Facebook, Ahmard Vital. There's no alias. You type that name in and then I'll pop up. But I do want to offer your audience, Mike, something. There's probably somebody listening who does have a young adult in their house, does have a teenager in their house, and maybe that teenager's going through a season, and that season where mental health is kicked in, maybe some anxiety, bad grades, a little bit of depression, just having a rough go right now. If they put in the 1230 podcast in the subject line when send me over an email, just give me a little bit of a backstory, we will offer them a 30-minute discovery call, 30-minute discovery coaching call, complimentary on me, to get back to your teen or young adult. We must build a sturdy bridge to our future generations, and we need to help them unpack this and save as many of them as possible. And so if you have someone who is dealing with that right now, be sure and reach out to me by email, and just be sure and mention our guy Mike in the subject line, and we'll get them taken care of.
I appreciate that. Our listeners appreciate that. We'll be sure to include all that information in the show notes. Ahmad, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. We did get to talk about a good amount of things tonight, but is there anything I didn't ask you that I probably should have?
I mean, just my work and love for the teams. I love them. I lean in hard on my young men. Um, I, I I want to sort of undo some of the societal things that are going on right now, where they're teaching young men to be one way, they're teaching young ladies to be another way, and it goes against the traditional way of how societies are built and how they work. Um, and so I want to try to restore some of those values that was taught to me by my fathers, some of which have been lost in today's society. And so just my work in the ministry is really shaped a lot of who I've become. And I'm not apologetic for any of it as all. I lean in on them, I love them hard, and I show them a way to be able to do some great and amazing things. And some of it comes with, a lot of discipline and a lot of trade-offs, but it's worth it because we have a country to build, we have a country to uphold, and I want my young men to be able to lead, to be the leaders of the next generations. I want them to take the mantle of what I've created and take it even further and reach out to those who are younger than them right now. And so that's a big mission of mine, is to build up our youngsters to know that there's a place and a purpose for you in this, and you don't need to fall back and think that you're deserving of something. I want you to go out there and earn it. I want you to dig it out. I want you to go grind it. I want you to compete, and I want you to win. I want you to lose. I want you to cry. I want you to fail. And I want you to come back strong and victorious. And so that's sort of where I am right now. And that would be the only way that would be one way I'd cap this off.
It's an excellent way to do it. Keep up the amazing work. We'll be rooting for you, and look forward to doing this again down the line. Have a good night, Ahmad, and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you again for having me.